The greatest enemy of your future is not outside you. It's the voice in your head that sounds like you. And until you learn to control it, it will quietly decide your entire life. Most people will never hear what I'm about to tell you, not because it's hidden, not because it's complicated, but because it's uncomfortable. Because it destroys the biggest lie you've been living with. The lie that your life is controlled by circumstances, by luck, by other people, by the past. The truth is far more dangerous. Your life is being controlled, but not by the world. It's being controlled by what's happening inside your own mind, your reactions, your emotional habits, your invisible programs, your untrained attention. And if that sounds intense, it should. Because the moment you see this clearly, you can never unsee it. Every time you explode instead of pause, every time you escape instead of face, every time you know what's right but choose what's easy, something else is driving. So let me ask you a question that may change how you see yourself. Who is really in control of your life right now? Is it you? Or is it your emotions, your impulses, your memories, and your fears wearing your face? Because most people are not living, they are being lived. They wake up inside a mental system they never chose. They feel emotions they don't understand. They repeat patterns they swear they hate. And slowly, quietly, they hand over the steering wheel of their future. Hello and welcome to Glaze English. And today, I'm not here to motivate you. I'm here to confront you. To wake up the part of you that knows you were not born to be controlled by moods, distractions, and old stories. This video is not meant to entertain you. It is meant to interrupt you, to make you pause, to make you feel, to make you realize that the most powerful thing in your life is also the most neglected. Your inner world. Your mind. And once you begin to take control of that, everything else starts to move. Now, before we go any further, if content like this speaks to you, if you want to build a stronger mind, deeper English, and a more powerful life, subscribe to this channel and support Glaze English so we can continue creating videos that don't just teach you, but transform you. Because what you're about to hear is not information. It's an invitation to take your power back. If part 1 was about waking up to the truth that something inside you has been driving your life, then this part is about finally seeing what that something is. Because you cannot take back control of your mind until you clearly see what has been controlling it. Most people think they are free. But freedom is not doing whatever you feel like doing. That is the lowest level of control. Real freedom is being able to pause, to choose, to say no to what weakens you, even when it feels good. One of the strongest invisible chains is temporary pleasure. Anything that gives you comfort now, but steals from you later, is not a reward. It is a trade. You trade clarity for noise. You trade growth for escape. You trade long-term power for short-term relief. When you feel bored, you reach for stimulation. When you feel stressed, you reach for distraction. When you feel lonely, you reach for attention. When you feel tired, you reach for avoidance. And in those moments, it feels like relief. But relief is not the same as healing. relief fades, and what remains is a quieter, heavier feeling that you are slowly losing control of yourself. The mind becomes weak not because life is hard, but because it is constantly trained to avoid what is uncomfortable. And every time you choose the easy thing over the right thing, you teach your nervous system who is in charge. Another chain is emotional reaction. Most people don't live from awareness. They live from reflex. Something happens, and the emotion takes over. Anger speaks. Fear decides. Jealousy compares. Sadness withdraws. There is no pause, no space, no choice. And wherever there is no pause, there is no power. Each time you react without awareness, you give the situation authority over your inner world. You may win the argument, but you lose your peace. You may express the emotion, but you reinforce its control. Strength is not emotional numbness. Strength is the space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where your real self lives. Another chain enters through your senses. Your mind is not only shaped by what you think, it is shaped by what you repeatedly expose yourself to, the tone of what you watch, the words you listen to, the conversations you stay inside, the emotional atmosphere you breathe every day. Most people never notice that they are feeding their mind anxiety, conflict, and emptiness from morning to night, then wondering why they feel anxious, conflicted, and empty. You cannot expect a clear inner world while constantly pouring noise into it. Mental strength begins with mental diet. And one of the deepest chains of all is memory, not the past itself, but where your attention goes in the past. Some people unconsciously return to the same emotional places every day. Old humiliations, old regrets, old wounds, old failures. They replay them, analyze them, argue with them, relive them, and over time, the mind begins to live there. But every painful memory also contains something else. The fact that you survived it, the fact that you continued, the fact that you adapted. You are not defined by what hurt you. You are defined by what kept breathing after it. Breaking old chains does not mean forcing positivity. It means becoming honest about what has been shaping you. And the moment you see it clearly, without excuses and without self-hatred, something quietly returns. Choice. And where choice returns, power begins. And once you begin to see what has been shaping you, something powerful happens. You stop fighting blindly, and you start rebuilding consciously. Because the moment you recognize the chains, you are no longer only a prisoner. You become an architect. Your mind is not something you were simply born with. It is something that has been trained. Every belief you hold today was practiced into existence. Every emotional reaction you experience easily was once learned. Every story you tell yourself about who you are was slowly written through repetition. Your mind works like a system, and systems respond to programming. If you never choose what to install, whatever is loudest will take its place. Other people's words, past failures, comparisons, disappointments, labels you never questioned. Over time, they form an inner voice, and that inner voice quietly becomes your reality. It tells you what is possible, what is dangerous, what you deserve, what you should expect from life. This is why autosuggestion is not a motivational trick. It is psychological architecture. The sentences you repeat inside yourself become emotional instructions. When you repeatedly say, "I'm not capable," your nervous system prepares to withdraw. When you repeat, "I always mess things up," your mind searches for proof. When you say, "I can't handle this," your body contracts before the situation even arrives. But when the language changes, the structure begins to change. I am learning to stay grounded. I can experience emotion without being ruled by it. I am becoming someone who responds with clarity. I am allowed to rebuild myself. At first, these words may feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean untrue. It means new. And new is how growth always feels. At the same time, emotional understanding deepens. Most people grow up learning what emotions feel like, but not what they mean. So they try to escape them, control them, suppress them, or drown them in noise. But emotions are not random storms. They are communication. They point. They reveal. They protect. Anger often reveals where a boundary has been crossed. Fear often reveals where preparation is needed. Sadness often reveals where something meaningful was lost. Jealousy often reveals a desire you have not yet honored. Guilt often reveals a value you still carry. When you stop labeling emotions as problems and start approaching them as information, your inner world changes. You stop asking, "How do I get rid of this feeling?" And you begin asking, "What is this feeling asking me to see?" That single shift moves you from inner conflict to inner dialogue. And through that dialogue, you begin to recognize patterns, old emotional habits, protective reactions, learned responses. Understanding does not make emotion disappear, but it removes confusion, and clarity is calming. As this happens, something else becomes impossible to ignore: your environment. The human nervous system is deeply social. It absorbs tone. It mirrors emotion. It learns by exposure. The way people speak around you becomes the way your inner voice speaks. The emotional climate you stay inside becomes your emotional baseline. If your world is filled with complaint, urgency, hopelessness, and tension, your mind will quietly normalize those states. Not because you are weak, but because you are human. Protecting your inner world is not isolation. It is discernment. It is choosing what kind of voices shape your identity. What kind of conversations train your emotions? What kind of ideas live rent-free in your attention? As your inputs change, your inner dialogue changes. As your inner dialogue changes, your emotional landscape changes. And slowly, something stabilizes inside you. You begin to feel less pushed, less pulled, less fragmented. Not because life is suddenly easy, but because your inner system is no longer chaotic. This is the beginning of inner coherence. And coherence is the soil where real self-control grows. And when your inner world begins to feel clearer and more stable, a new responsibility naturally appears. The responsibility to lead yourself. Because awareness heals, but leadership transforms. At this stage, Your life no longer needs more understanding. It needs direction. And direction begins with focus. A scattered mind feels weak, not because it lacks intelligence, but because its energy is constantly leaking. Pulled into messages, pulled into worries, pulled into comparisons, pulled into unfinished loops. Each time your attention jumps, your nervous system resets. And a system that is always resetting never builds depth. Depth is where confidence forms. Depth is where emotional regulation strengthens. Depth is where the mind becomes quiet enough to hear itself. Focus is not something you force. It is something you train. You choose one task, one intention, one space of presence, and you stay. At first, the mind resists. It looks for stimulation. It searches for escape. It creates reasons to leave. But each moment you remain, something important happens. You stop proving that you are busy, and you start proving that you are in control. From focus grows the next skill: authority over thought. Your mind produces narratives constantly: predictions, judgments, catastrophes, self-definitions. If these narratives are left unexamined, they become invisible laws, and invisible laws run your behavior. So mental leadership means learning to question the voice that speaks inside you, not to fight it, but to evaluate it. When a thought appears, you no longer accept it automatically. You pause. You ask, is this a fact or an emotional assumption? Is this helping me move forward or keeping me small? Is this my higher understanding or my older fear? Each time you question a limiting thought, you loosen its authority, and in that space, you gain something priceless: choice. From choice grows the ability to build an internal vision. Visualization is not dreaming. It is neurological rehearsal. Your nervous system learns from experience, whether real or vividly imagined. When you emotionally experience calm, your body learns calm. When you repeatedly picture yourself capable, your behavior reorganizes around capability. You stop waiting to feel confident before you act. You practice the feeling of confidence until it becomes familiar. You see yourself responding with composure. You feel yourself finishing what you start. You experience yourself moving through difficulty without collapse. And slowly, your internal image begins to pull your external behavior toward it. This is how identity shifts. From visualization grows intention. Without intention, your emotional system sets your direction. With intention, your conscious mind does. An intention is not a wish. It is an inner instruction. It tells your attention what matters. It tells your nervous system how to organize energy. It tells your emotions what standard they serve. Today, I choose clarity. Today, I choose restraint. Today, I choose progress over comfort. Today, I choose to respond rather than react. When difficulty appears, the mind looks for your command. And when there is no command, it returns to old patterns. But when intention is present, something powerful happens. Your inner world stops drifting and begins aligning. From intention emerges the core of self-leadership: discipline. Discipline is not hardness. It is consistency of identity. It is doing what aligns with who you are becoming, even when the emotional weather disagrees. Emotion says, rest in what is familiar. Discipline says, move toward what is meaningful. Emotion says, wait until you feel ready. Discipline says, readiness is built through movement. Each small, disciplined act is a signal to the mind. I am someone who follows through. I am someone who keeps agreements with myself. I am someone who does not abandon direction when discomfort appears. And trust grows. Not confidence in your moods, but trust in your ability to guide yourself. That trust is emotional freedom. Because when you trust yourself, you are no longer controlled by every feeling. You can feel fear and still move. Feel discomfort and still choose. Feel resistance and still act. This is the birth of the inner leader. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. And steadiness is what changes lives. And as the inner leader grows stronger, something quieter and more powerful begins to take its place beneath it. Presence. Because real mastery is not only the ability to move forward, it is the ability to arrive. Mindfulness is the art of returning to what is real. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but this breath, this sensation, this moment. When attention settles into the present, the nervous system softens. The mind loosens its grip on old stories. The body remembers how to rest without escaping. In presence, emotions no longer need to shout to be heard. They are felt. They are allowed. They are understood. And from presence, meditation naturally opens. Meditation is not about emptying the mind. It is about creating a space where the mind no longer controls you. You sit. You breathe. You observe. Thoughts appear. Sensations rise. Feelings move. And instead of being pulled into them, you learn to witness them. In that witnessing, something profound happens. You recognize that you are not the voice. You are the awareness behind it. And awareness brings gentleness. It brings patience. It brings emotional space. Then comes writing. Because some things cannot be released only through thought. They need form. When you write, emotion becomes visible. Confusion becomes language. Pain becomes something you can hold without drowning in. Writing your pain is not weakness. It is precision. And when the pain is placed on the page, something else becomes possible. You write your strength, what you learned, what you endured, what you are choosing next. You stop being only the character in your story. You become its author. And before we end, I want to leave you with this. If you are still here, it means something in you is listening. It means some part of you is ready to live differently. Not louder, not faster, but truer. You are not broken. You are reorganizing. You are not behind. You are becoming. And the fact that you are willing to look inside yourself with honesty already places you on a path many never choose. So take a breath and make yourself this promise. I will not walk away from who I am becoming, because that promise is where your real power lives. As we reach the end of this journey, it's important to understand something clearly. This was never just a video about controlling your thoughts, and it was never only about emotions. This was about reclaiming authorship over your own life. Most people spend years trying to change the outside. They change jobs. They change relationships. They change cities. They change goals. But they carry the same inner system everywhere they go. The same reactions, the same fears, the same patterns, the same voice. So the scenery changes, but the experience stays the same. Real change does not begin with circumstances. It begins with consciousness. The moment you start observing your inner world instead of obeying it, you step out of unconscious living. You realize you are not your mood. You are not your past. You are not the voice that criticizes you. You are not the fear that warns you. You are the one who notices all of it. And that single realization quietly rearranges everything. Because when you are no longer merged with your inner storms, you can guide them. When you are no longer hypnotized by your emotions, you can work with them. When you are no longer ruled by your impulses, you can choose. The deepest lesson of all is this: you do not become powerful by becoming someone else. You become powerful by becoming present. Present enough to pause. Present enough to listen. Present enough to respond instead of react. Present enough to build a relationship with your own mind. And the most important application is not dramatic. It is daily. It is in the moment you don't immediately grab your phone. It is in the moment you breathe before you answer. It is in the moment you write instead of suppress. It is in the moment you choose rest instead of escape. It is in the moment you keep a small promise to yourself. This work does not require perfection. It requires participation. 5 minutes of awareness. 1 honest journal page. 1 disciplined action. 1 conscious pause. Over time, these moments build a new inner environment. And when the inner environment changes, the outer life always follows. Not because life becomes easy, but because you become steady, and a steady person can move through anything. Before you go, I want to ask you one simple question. What is one inner habit or emotional pattern you want to start changing from today? Write your answer in the comments. Your words may help someone else realize they are not alone. And if this kind of content supports your growth, please subscribe to the channel to support Glaze English so we can continue creating videos that don't just teach English, but help build stronger minds and better lives. Your presence here matters, and your journey is only beginning.